Hey, Simplifiers, it's Evan Umberger. Today, I've got a great friend talking about how you can be able to multiply your impact. We met a couple years ago at a real estate event, and I was just really drawn into the way that he was just caring for people one on one. And as I got to know his background and got to know just the way that he was approaching things, I was like, man, I got to get to know this guy. And as I've just seen him over the past couple of years, I've really enjoyed seeing kind of the mix of systems and prioritizing your family and your business and the way that you're impacting your community. The conversation was just so rich, and there's just practical things that you can be able to pick out from this. So let me know what you think in the comments. I'd love to hear from you. Enjoy this episode. Well, thank you so much, Nick, for joining. How's it going, man?
Oh man, I love Mondays. Drop the kids off at school, get a little date with my wife, and then just tackle uh, all of the things for the rest of the day. So it's a beautiful start to the week.
I love it. Yeah, my wife and I too were just talking about how we'll use Mondays over lunch because it's like the kids are at school and we've got a great place to go and get a walk in usually. So just curious, what sort of, places do you guys like to go for, you know, having a great start to the week?
Fall in Minnesota is magical. So the leaves are prime right now, and
Oh,
there's a field by our house. It's about a 45-minute loop. We'll go halfway. There's a park. So we'll often have our daughter with us. So she'll go on the swings. And it's just good time. We listen to a podcast, Growth Day podcast by Brendan Burchard.
yeah.
And
Brendan,
then,
yeah.
yeah, just good time to connect. We homeschool, but our kids do a co-op a couple times a week. And this is just a natural time for us to get on the same page and talk about all the things that go along with raising four kids and leading businesses and trying to be active members in our community.
That's huge. That's huge. Yeah. And just doing it together and finding, the areas that you thrive in and the ways that you can be able to help other people. I've loved just your content, the way that you've been
Mm.
talking on LinkedIn. Guys, you gotta follow him. You gotta connect with him on LinkedIn because he just really has a great way of looking at how you're spending time, how you're choosing your values. I mean, how'd you kind of get to the rhythms that you have now? And then we'll get into your background, all that good stuff.
A lot of stumbling and falling. I think the best way to learn is through failure. But I think there's a lot of, you know, I think I'm a pretty ambitious person and I want to do great things. And yet that ambition, if it's harnessed correctly, can lead to a life where you might crush it at work, but your
Mm,
relationship at home with your spouse or your kids or your roommates might really suffer, or you might not really be engaged in your community. And I just kind of started writing about, people and technology and ministry and business and passive investing. And I started just kind of coming up with this theme of why not talk about the different wins you can have in life, winning at work, like being really good at whoever God has made you to be and to excel and to really dive in deep to who God has made you to be. And then at home, being the most present spouse, father, if you have the blessing of kids, roommate,
mm.
if you're living with other people. And then in your community, there's so many opportunities. Just yesterday, blowing off the leaves for my neighbor, those little like 10-minute things
Yeah.
produce the fruit of great relationships. So how are you investing in those little moments of adding in a little bit extra to love and serve your neighbors? So yeah, kind of just started wrestling with all those different things. It's so nerve wracking beginning to post on social media because there's so many fears of what my employers think. Do I even have anything to offer? I can never
Oh,
be like that guy over there. But just starting small and just putting it out there and just kind of figuring out what do you enjoy talking about and what's
yeah.
connecting with other people. And it seems like a lot of people are wanting to start a business. A lot of people are wanting to be more present at home. A lot of people want to be more generous or more purposeful in their life. So just try to create content around those three pillars of winning at work, winning at home, and winning at community.
That's huge. Yeah, I even think about just yesterday, we had people over for the Chiefs game, of course. Just like I bet you had people over for the Vikings game.
Crazy enough, I'm a
And-
Packer fan, so I'm from Wisconsin.
oh, really?
So I'm loving the last few ending the game with a field goal to win. But I am coming to Kansas City and I'm going to a Chiefs game a week from today, so I'm pretty excited.
Oh, nice. Yeah. I was just gonna say, like it's so funny how those kind of moments of watching a football game or whatever it is, just just brings people together, and there's a commonality, and there's like all right, we're all on the same team, we're all winning, and just the conversations that happen. I think about what you were saying about how are you impacting the community, and um and you have your family around, and it's just like it's a little messy, it's like there's food around and whatever else, but just the conversations of getting to know someone
Hmm.
at at a football game, it's going to be a little informal, and you're going to go, hey, what are the things that you guys like to do in the fall? And and they share, and the point is like that can be that same level of ease on social media.
Mm.
And when you're on LinkedIn, you can talk about the things you want to, but just like if you were, at a football game at a friend's, like you're not gonna blab on and on and on and on and on and on. Like you're gonna like tease out things, and you're gonna like bring about all sorts of different topics. And that's just one thing that I, have been able to, just seeing you grow in so many great ways. And so just I'd love to hear what your thoughts are about these types of, generally low key social situations, but how those are actually kind of close to how you can approach things on your content.
Man, I keep a little file on my phone, just on the notes app of content ideas, because every single day, whether it's just talking with my kids or on the way going somewhere with my wife or with one of my kids, or just even in the comments or sub comments within a thread, there's so many great ways to leverage what your experiences have been and what you're learning right
Mhm.
now and what questions you have. A lot of times I'm learning from people as I'm writing and seeing what they write back and trying to ask more questions. You're asking them, "Hey, would you post on that someday? Because I'm really curious to learn about it." So
Mm.
I think the phrase that I've kind of adopted is just be curious. And when you're curious, that leads to connection, that leads to
Yeah.
opportunity, that leads to potential partnerships, and there's just so much opportunity. I think a lot of people talk about I don't know if it's the Jim Rohn quote that says you're the average of the five people you spend yourself with, but that's really true. So like pick wisely who you are investing your time with, and invest
Mhm.
around people that you share similar values, ways that you want to grow as a leader, things that other people are doing that you'd like to be more like. One of our friends, they've adopted this policy where the once a month, based on the day of the child's birthday, we'll have like a special night with them. So at the Stromwall house,
Yeah.
Tuesday night is the night. So from 8 to 9 o'clock, just one-on-one time with one of our kids. The other kids kind of
Mhm.
go to their room or do their own thing. But like adopting that from another friend because we had them over for dinner or we're in their lives,
Right.
you can learn so much from other people. So be curious.
There you go. It was funny because one friend was like, "Hey, this chicken, like, whoa, how'd you make this?" And it was actually funny because my wife was like, "Well, actually, I learned it from the other family that's right here," and it was just like this, just the
Mm.
sharing of ideas that was like everyone's benefiting from how good this barbecue chicken is.
You get that
Oh
recipe. We like our chicken over here too.
man. Yeah. You mentioned values, and I would just like for you to just kind of weave in your background and how that's affected and impacted your values to where you are today, and how you even got into business.
Yeah, great question. So my wife and I, we spent 15 years as college ministry, basically as acting as college pastors to university students here in the Minneapolis, St. Paul metro. And for both of
Awesome.
us, we had a mentor come into our lives while we were in college, asking those big questions in life. Who am I? What am I made for? What purpose is my life going to fulfill? And having someone to be able to ask those bigger questions with can really help
Mm.
transform your life. And for both of us, it was really engaging a relationship with Christ for the first time. I used to think of the Bible, Christianity as kind of like, make sure your positive account is more than your negative account. And then you'll get the reward, the blessing of being able to go to heaven. But like the Bible's a
Mm.
love story. The Bible's this
Yeah.
pursuit of God rescuing his people, and grace. It's just the most amazing thing. It's, my friend said once, what does grace feel like? Grace feels like you enter a room and it's if you can do no wrong. That's what grace feels like. And that's what the God Bible offers us, is not only that grace of feeling like you can do no wrong, but eternal life and hope and joy and peace. And being a pretty anxious person myself, that peace was really something that I was kind of longing or searching for. So that led me into a career as a college pastor for 15 years, just helping other students kind of learn how to find that peace, learn how to find that true and lasting joy. And then as we were doing this college ministry, we kind of just looked for ways to be generous. The students we were mentoring were going on lots of summer trips. They looked for funding. We were, college pastors raising funding for ourselves, and we were just looking for a way to be generous. So we kind of stumbled into real estate as a way to help us be able to support some of the students we were mentoring. And it just started
Mm.
with becoming friends, being curious with the guys across the street from us. They were unloading a car. They asked for help. I said, sure. And then eventually they said, hey, do you want to buy this duplex? And I said, yeah, actually I do. So that kind of led to a pursuit of trying to figure out how to fund your first purchase and finding a business partner, and learned the key of 50% of the deal is better than no deal at all. And that kind of started our journey into real estate. And yeah, it was just kind of cool to kind of learn how to kind of engage and figure out how to evaluate a deal and what makes business sense. But we owned that duplex for over 10 years and served, 50 or so tenants over those 10 years. And it was a real joy to like learn how to take something that was, okay, but make it better and continue to invest in
Yeah.
it and give the tenants a great experience and also reap the rewards of the profit. And, we're able to sell that investment property after 10 years, and Lord willing, that will fund their kids' college someday because we're continuing to learn how to be good stewards. But I think eventually at some point in your business career, you realize your time is one of your most valuable assets and you can't make more of it. So if you can leverage your time, then you can really leverage your impact. And we learned that commercial real estate has a real ability to multiply the opportunities and the resources that go along with that. So started a real estate company about 2 years ago called Vine Capital. And I just helped people multiply their money impacts through investing in alternative assets like multifamily, industrial, oil and gas investing, private credit, just a lot of different asset classes, lots of different markets, just trying to help people be good stewards and really encourage generosity along the way.
That's huge. And I mean, there's so many ways that you grow from going, okay, I've got my duplex and it's grown over the last couple, I guess 10 plus years at this point. But taking that to, other people's money. I mean, and maybe you had other private investors, but over the last 2 years, what are some, lessons you learned, some ways that you've grown um Oak and Vine over the past couple of years?
Yeah, I mean, we're a young investment company. We're coming up on our 10th syndication. We have about 50 investors, over 350 future investors in my educational sequences. But really, it starts with something pretty simple. It's investing in yourself. My grandma gave us a
Mm.
gift, and that gift, me and my wife prayed about it, and we invested a big portion of that into self education and learning a skill that would produce the fruit that became Oak and Vine. And it's hard to invest in yourself. It's hard to
Mm.
take resources that you've been saving for, or even part of your budget to to grow and develop as a leader. And yet it's that act of faith, that act of saying, here I am, and this is where I want to be. And the investment of education is often the way that can help get you there. And if you're able to pay for a coach, you can actually accelerate your growth a lot faster.
Yeah.
So for me, it's just like, hey, what values do I have? I like systems, I like
Mhm.
technology. I wanted to learn from other people. So I said, hey, here are my skill sets. How can I come alongside you and help you in deals? So a lot of my deals I got into was just figuring out ways where they had friction and trying to reduce that friction with some of the things
Yeah.
that I knew how to do. And eventually just really fell in love with the idea of helping educate people that there is a different way, or I would say a better way of investing than what the traditional methods are of just kind of stocking money into your 401k. There's alternative investments that actually have the power to not only give you cash flow, but also give you appreciation and tax savings and help you accelerate and multiply the growth of your investment capital and investment dollars. And as a faith driven investor, there's actually ways that you can use your investment dollars directly to help impact the world for the sake of your faith too. And I think I'm really young and learning more and more about that particular place. But yeah, I would just say, don't be afraid to invest in yourself. 50% of the deal is better than no deal at all. And then the general thing I would say, Evan, for your audience is become the person you want to become. You gotta take risks, and taking risks is pushing yourself slightly past what you think is possible to become that person. And several times in my business, it was the first deal or this new asset type or this new asset vehicle, joint venturing to co-JP to fund to funds. Each of those steps was kind of scary. Never done it before. I had a lot of questions. I didn't have someone holding my hand necessarily to help me through each of those things, but I knew that I had this ambition to want to live on 10% and give 90% away, which meant taking more and more steps to try to get to that place where I could really have a company that's thriving and a company that could support on 10% of the income and give the rest away. So each of those steps was pushing myself past what I thought was possible, and raising more capital than I've ever raised before. But it was because I had a greater why. And I think so many people don't take time to ask themselves one question. And that one question is, what do I want? I think so often we live into this mentality of I have to do what other people tell me to do. I have to follow the path of my parents or my grandparents instead of being who God's made you to be. You're unique. God has gifted each person so uniquely. Evan, you understand marketing and multimedia and connecting with people and telling stories. It's like, I'm so glad you've started your own company to do that because you're living into who God's made you to be. And in this season, I've wanted to be an entrepreneur for a long time. I've started businesses in the past, but kind of felt that itch to come and go off and do something. And Open Vine was born when it's this beautiful thing of I don't know how this is going to go. This risk may have a great reward or it could fall short. But even when you fall short, even when you fail, those are just stepping blocks to where you want to go.
What would you say if you had any limiting beliefs, whether those were internal beliefs, whether those were external forces, just that helped you, put some pressure on and then produces a diamond? I mean, what are those sort of things that you were able to overcome, that you were able to come out on the other side?
Yeah, lots of limiting beliefs. I think, probably the greatest one was, do I have what it takes? I think a lot of people ask themselves that question. Do I have what it takes to, finish that goal, start that business, start posting on social media, do that thing? And you don't know until you try. Well, and why do we live in a culture that's so risk adverse, so risk intolerant to not try great things? I want to instill this value into the lives of my kids. Lots of great things. You don't know until you try. And what's at stake if you don't try is you'll never know if you can do it. You'll never know if that thing you've been dreaming about could actually happen. So take risks. You got to push yourself past what you think is possible in order to become the person that God has designed you to be.
What's like one piece of leadership advice that you would like to share? It could be something that you've pulled together or something that, you heard from someone else and maybe it was a mentor or just a book you read and it's just really impacted you.
Yeah. I'm going to go with two pieces of advice. One is as a faith-filled leader, I think we can easily kind of separate our faith from our work. So like churches on Sundays and maybe Wednesday nights, that's when the faith should happen. But I'm learning what it looks like to partner with God in my business. And one story is there was an opportunity last year to do a deal that I've never done before. And it was in a season of my life where I probably had the least capacity. My wife was pregnant and very, very sick. And I was kind of primarily taking care of her, but this opportunity came and it was like awesome. But yet I had this fear of this is like the most terrible time. But I kept feeling that small, still voice of saying like, go for it. I'm going to
Right.
help you. Be with me.
Good.
And I was talking to my family about it, and they're like, well, isn't it kind of weird that if God's calling you to do something, you should do it? So it was my 12-year-old son saying, Dad, if God says he's going to help you, like just trust him. So I was like, you're right. I'm going to go for this. And I did it. And it was the most amount of money I've raised and the best potential opportunity that I've ever taken part of. So you can pray and you can discern and you can partner with God in your business if you're a faith-filled person.
Mhm.
You don't have to economize those. The second piece of advice I would say is, Dan Sullivan is a phenomenal leader. He has this book called Who Not How. So don't ask
Yeah.
yourself the question, how can I get this done? How can I accomplish goal? But ask, who do I know that can help me along the way?
Exactly.
And I think that's a really transformative, um, just fundamental shift that so many people think. As a new entrepreneur, you're wearing all the hats, and it's really hard. Cash flow is tight. Your capital is probably really tight when you first get started. It's hard to think about delegating. It's hard to think about hiring people to do certain things, and it's yet those very acts of faith, of delegating, of bringing on assistance, of you know not doing every single task or project that often leads to the biggest growth in your company. But it's scary, and it's scary to do that. But ask yourself the question: who, not how.
I remember hearing that probably 10 or 15 years ago. It was,
Yeah,
I think it was Bob Bodine that was referencing, that book. And I just remember thinking, oh yeah, because if I'm, really good in this genius zone, but I've got a task and I've got, problems in these other areas, I don't need to, hit that learning curve. I just need to find, the right people and, you know, trust that they're gonna be able to take care of it and
yep,
be that be that coach, if they need clarity over the vision. But ultimately, you don't tell smart people what to do when they're an expert in something.
yeah. It is hard as an entrepreneur to um, segments and capital through a budget to be able to pay someone else to do something or to take things off your plate. I think the greatest thing is we just don't know how to say no. It's easy to
Mm,
be busy. It's a lot harder to be productive. It's a lot harder to take 50 minutes and just turn everything else off and just focus in on that one thing that's going to really help move you forward. Maybe this is my third piece of advice, is just learning
it's
how to
alright.
set a goal and reverse engineer it. I think we should be
Mm,
teaching our kids this way earlier. So it could be a thing, an experience, something, it could be the next level of your business. For me as a capital raiser, it's the next amount of capital that I want to raise. So if I want to raise $10 million in a year, how do I reverse engineer that? What does that mean
mhm,
per quarter, per month? In order to hit that goal per month, how many potential people do I need to reach out to? And of those potential people, how many meetings do I have? And what's my average investor amount? You need to reverse engineer it back so that you know what are the daily activities, what are the weekly activities that you need to be working on to be able to achieve that goal, and how do you measure against that every single day. It's easy to respond to messages. It's easy to clean out your inbox because it feels good, like you're doing something. It's harder to let a message sit there for 3 or 4 days, but
mhm,
do the work that's really going to move your business forward. And I think that's
right.
a leadership skill that can be caught and taught, but it takes the right
Yeah.
kind of leader to be able to help speak into someone's life and love them, truth and love with, hey, I think you should be doing this. I think you shouldn't be doing this. Or just evaluating your time. How are you spending your time in a day, in a week, in a month? And are the ways that you're spending time really helpful in moving you to where you want to go? It's not all purely about like productivity. Like productivity is great. Systems are great. I love tech. I love systems. I love
Right.
productivity. But the best tech, the best systems aren't going to help you reach your goals if you're not working on the right activities each day.
There's so many times when I'm either looking for a do I go left or do I go right, you know, kind of situation. And sometimes it's like it's actually up to you of which way you want to go. And sometimes even the indecision um could be that block. It could be the thing that was either holding me back or holding back that project or,
Hmm.
and then there's just sometimes when it's like, man, I thought I was supposed to go left and I went right and, had the consequences. I mean, what would you say, like in your case, if you could go back in time and just, see like, oh, what would make my breakthrough go, a little bit earlier or faster? What would one of those, situations or, what would you kind of tell yourself to be like, is it don't go left or don't go right? Or is it like, think about it this way? What would you say, Nick?
Life is so integrated and there's so many different domains in your life, from just like your health to your food, to your exercise, to your
Hmm.
friendships, to your faith, to your finances. I think all of life is really connected. So having some way to measure all of those different domains in your life, it's not purely like if you have a good morning ritual, your whole day is going to be magical. But
It's not that linear.
there's something to having a good morning ritual that really helps you set up. But if you have a good morning
Right.
ritual and you're really sleeping 4 hours, then you shot yourself in the foot, right? So like
Yeah.
sometimes the best advice I might give someone is it's a had a good time. Create a
Yeah.
charging station and put your phone outside your bedroom. Invest in a $15 alarm clock on Amazon. Like small things can make extraordinary impacts. Pre-plan your meals for the week. It's so easy to just go out to lunch every day, but are you eating the right type of
Mhm.
health and nutrition? And for me, it's like getting the right amount of protein. It's hard to do that if I'm not planning ahead and I'm just grabbing whatever I can before I leave. But
Yeah.
intentionality can really produce a lot of effectiveness. And it's not just in one domain. Some weeks I might neglect my wife and my kids, but like my work might be doing great. And other weeks my work might be doing terrible, but the relationships in my life might be doing great. So it's always constantly evolving. It's not like you can have a perfectly cookie cutter ideal week. You schedule everything in your calendar and it's going to happen 100%. Your ideal week, it never happens really, but it's the
Right.
ability to overcome, adapt, and adapt and overcome whatever might happen to get to where you want to go. But having that guiding principle, those vision, those value statements, not thinking about success in a 1 week or 1 year, but 10 years at a time, a decade, that can really help, produce the fruits that you want. But what you water grows, right? If you're not watering your garden,
Mhm.
you're not going to have a very good harvest or crop. So what do you want to be watering? I think that's a really good question to be asking throughout your life as an entrepreneur, as a business owner is what are the things that really matter? And are you watering them the way that you want? Because your personal financial statement doesn't really matter when you die. There's
Right.
certain things in life that are important, but are not ultimate.
That's true. Yeah. I was just talking with some friends and, um, we were in a challenging situation. And just as a way to give that visual, I said, guys, and it just got like randomly cold like a week or two ago, whatever it was. And, it was like supposed to get to freezing. And I said, guys, now's the time to put the tulips in the ground. And they're like, what are you talking about? Like, well, if you can get the tulips in the ground, like before the freeze, then and I'm not like, don't go do exactly what I'm saying, but it was just the idea of like, hey, now we can actually like, we've been dealing with the soil. You know,
Mhm.
we've been trying to get the environment right for this situation. And so now's the time that we put the tulips in the ground. And by the time that spring comes, you know, it's, it's blooming and it's beautiful. But that's 6 months from now. And like, keep that vision of we're making intentional choices now that we're going to be able to reap rewards later.
Mhm. Good. Very wise.
As far as, just for someone to stay connected with you, like I already said, get them up on LinkedIn because
What? Yeah,
you,
I write at least 5 days a week on LinkedIn. Just type in Nick Stromwall. The link, I'm sure, will be in the show notes. And yeah, would love to connect with you. And if there's ways I can come along and serve you either as a leader or an entrepreneur, or if you're interested in passive investing, I've got some great opportunities.
awesome. Well, thank you so much, Nick. Always enjoy chatting with you.
Yeah, thanks for the time, Evan. This has been awesome.
So, what was one thing that stood out to you? I've always found that when there's, a lot of great nuggets, a lot of things that we could be able to take, we can always boil it down to one thing that we want to be able to implement and that we want to be able to make a change. And so let me know. DM me on social or in the comments. Let me know what stood out to you and what you're going to be able to implement in order to multiply your impact. There's 3 areas in my life that I like to be able to implement right away. The first is leadership. The second is marketing. And the third is any sort of automation that makes anything in my life easier, right? And so if there's something that resonates with you about wanting to improve any of those 3 areas, let me know. I have been working on resources, guides, checklists, even AI prompts, systems that can be able to make things easier for you. And so if you'd like a sneak peek, let me know. Until next time, keep it simple, Saints.